Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Reading League Montana series on the House Bill 352. We're very grateful that you're joining us. We know that there are a lot of questions around the House Bill. We know that there are a lot of questions around really understanding the rule, really understanding who qualifies, how to use assessment tools. All of those questions are being answered in this series. So please let us know if you have questions in the chat. I will add them to the dialogue, but I'm going to hand this over to my colleague and Reading League board member, Genevieve Thomas. She's going to take the reins with our three amazing special education leaders in Montana. And if you're on, please turn your camera off until the end when we have questions, and then we will have cameras come back on, and then we can all join in the dialogue at the end. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Nell. Hi, everyone. I am happy to be here. My name is Genevieve Thomas. I'm the Director of Professional Learning with School Services of Montana. And as Nell said, I'm also on the board of the Reading League Montana. And I'm excited to introduce our panelists for today. As Nell said, this session is a part of a series that we are leading through the Reading League Montana to help build educator capacity to really implement meaningful programs through HB 352. And today is really a focus on how do we serve all learners and create inclusive programs. So we have just a fabulous panel to chat about that with us today. And so I'm going to have each of our panel members introduce themselves, share a little bit about their role and where they are kind of in this HB 352 journey. Mariah, would you like to start?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Thank you for attending this webinar. My name is Mariah Pace. I'm the director of the Prickly Pear Cooperative, and we serve 12-member districts, and kind of my home base is East Helena. And, I think one of the things we've been really focused on is getting our districts the most important information on what screeners are approved, and then collaborating with them on how to organize together, work better together to get the screenings done, and then also focusing on, okay, we've screened, now what does an effective pre-K environment look like? What are the tools and resources needed for all kids? And then going from there. So that's really where we're at.
Thanks, Mariah. Nora, would you like to introduce yourself next?
Yeah, so I'm Nora Barney. I am the current special ed director in Anaconda. I'm also the curriculum coordinator, so I wear multiple hats in our district. Previous to this, I was the principal at the primary school in town, Lincoln Primary, which was a pre-K through second grade, which served 3-year-olds to 8-year-olds. I'm still in charge of the early learning program, so they kept that hat with me with all my other hats. So we have operated an early learning program for a number of years. Of course, we have to serve students 3 to 5 that have disabilities. So that's always been a part of Anaconda's programming. But we also, when we got the Montana Preschool Development Grant, we expanded it and we started to include students without disabilities. And so we've had a very inclusive approach to early childhood learning for a number of years, I think like 2013. So it's been a while. We currently have an exceptional circumstance program for our 4-year-olds. Of course, that's going away. Policy 3100 no longer exists. I think it changed to 2130 is the new policy number. And so, yeah, we're rocking and rolling. We're actually screening students on Friday. We're doing a collaborative approach with Head Start. We are, because we were already an exceptional circumstance program, we were already familiar with a number of tools. So we did kind of look at some new tools. We are utilizing the PELI and then the TOEFL to do our assessments just to get some more information on our students. And we're just really trying to have a collaborative approach with the community and the other early childhood programs within our community because we can't serve all students. We know that because students won't qualify. So we need to make sure that all the other programs are also full, but also that those programs can help offer high quality services as well. So we're just trying to be really collaborative with everybody in Anaconda that services Friends.
Thank you, Nora. And we would love to hear a little bit later on more about those community partnerships for sure. And finally, Marcia, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Marcia Stolfus. I'm the Special Education Director for Flathead Special Ed Co-op. We have an in-house, I think we're one of the only co-ops that actually has an in-house program right now for preschool. And so this bill does change some things, and I think maybe for the better, as we're hoping to be more inclusive, because our program is really just for students with disabilities right now. And that's never how we wanted it designed. It's just how it's been. So I'm hoping through this, we can create a little more of an inclusive environment for our students. And then just working with those partnerships and districts. I think we have 18 total schools in our co-op. And as of yesterday, I think 3 schools are moving forward with those early K programs next year.
Marcia,
Thanks, Marcia.
we also have a preschool in our cooperative, but much the same as yours. It's specifically for students with disabilities, and it's a collaboration between member districts to consolidate those related service personnel in a delivery model that's kind of centrally located. So yeah, I agree. That was, we would love to see it more inclusive as well.
Perfect.
Well, thank you both for sharing that, because I think that's kind of one of the themes we wanted to talk about today. What implications does the new legislation have for our current programs and how we serve students with and without disabilities? So we will certainly circle back to that topic. But to kick things off, I think I'd love to hear a little bit about, you know, as educators are thinking about either refining existing programs or building new programs. If you joined us on the last session, you know that educators and leaders are already thinking about this idea of serving all students well and creating meaningful programs. So we'd love to hear from your perspective. What are really the principles, the practices, the enabling conditions that set an early childhood program up for success in terms of meaningful inclusion and the ability to serve all learners? Nora, do you want to start with that question? And then
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Thank you.
You know, I think that it starts with your core beliefs. So, you know, as a program, I think a lot of districts sometimes will take this early learning program and think, well, hey, like that, you know, we can take the bottom of the barrel teacher and put them in this position. And that's not what you should be doing at all. This is where your best teachers should be placed. Because it is such an important part of, you know, learning. So make sure that, you know, yeah, we're excited about this early literacy bill, but make sure your top teachers are there. So first, I think it's your core beliefs. Like, what do you believe? Do you believe all students can learn? If that's what you believe as a district, as a community, then that's what should happen. So you really need to establish some core beliefs as a program. And then also, you know, think about, well, what does that mean? And how do I help support it? And so we really want to make sure that we have professional development. And it's not just professional development that is, you know, we touch on it and go. It's very specific. Even if you're a K-8 certified teacher, early childhood is a different world, and you need some serious training on what it means to teach literacy. And so take this as an opportunity. Have funding. Let's take it as an opportunity to create high quality programs. I'd also think that, you know, understanding what it means to be a high quality program is extremely important. Type of leadership, certification, programming, amount of time spent doing certain activities is very important. And then I think the other thing is also like setting up your assessment practices. So if we are planning on doing, you know, we do need to do assessments, you need to do ongoing assessments, and you need to be able to look at your assessments and make changes. I could speak a long time and hours on all the high quality parts and pieces of early learning, but that's where I would start. You know, really establish your core beliefs, really make sure your professional development is tied and very tight and very supportive. It's not babysitting. And that's sometimes what people believe is that, you know, oh, you have a program for, you know, 3-4-year-olds or, you know, just for 4-year-olds and you're doing childcare. That's not what it is. There's learning. Your high quality staff are there. You want to make sure that you have assessments and a process in place to assess and reassess and make adjustments. So those would be my top things that I would share. What do you think, Mariah?
You know, I just love what you said about core beliefs. And I also thought a lot about this and completely agree that it's finding the right personnel and getting them the professional development in those areas that we know have a big impact, specifically oral language, and then also understanding universal design for learning. How do we set this environment up for success for all? So yeah, I completely agree. And then I think that districts need to understand exactly what Nora's saying about resource allocation. So saying, this is a high priority. If we can intervene early and do the right things, and just like Nora said, allocate our resources appropriately through professional development, staffing, and then I also agree completely by using some form of data collection and database decision making when we're trying to provide targeted interventions to those students. So completely agree with you 100%. And I love what you said about core values, because I think it starts there, that if we believe all students can learn and we believe all students should be provided with an amazing opportunity, then we are going to allocate those resources appropriately. We are going to design that environment around what works. So yeah, completely agree with Nora. How about you, Marcia?
Yes, I agree with all of those really great points about core values and professional development, and also that piece of professional development dealing with early childhood, because early childhood does look different. And I think that's really important for anyone who is taking on that role within the districts. And then the professional development to back that up with the early literacy piece. And then how we can use our related service providers to help support that too. Speech language pathologists really help with that. Oral language that you were talking about, Mariah, and how that literacy and language just go hand in hand. So I think that PD piece is super important in making sure we have the right people in those places.
I think you're speaking Nell's language there, Marcia, when you talk about the reading brain is a language brain, right? And I'm so glad to hear you kind of connect back to that, because as I was listening to you and Nora and Mariah share, I was just also thinking about, really the driver and the spirit behind this legislation is around third grade reading proficiency. So really thinking about that kind of lens of the enabling conditions as well. I wonder, and Marcia, I'd love to start with you on this one, because I'm thinking about you sharing about how, the intention of the co-op preschool program is to be more inclusive than it currently is. And so I'd love for you to start by sharing a little bit, as leaders are thinking about designing these programs, what are some of the barriers that they might encounter and should be mindful of that prevent that meaningful, inclusive experience that really truly serves all students?
Space and staff are two of the big ones. Making sure that we have enough staff and paraeducator support. Our preschool classroom is full. So to add more students, we need more staff. So I think staffing is a really big piece. And then having the space to know that you're going to grow. If you're going to be inclusive, we need the space for all kids, including space for equipment that might need to be in the classroom, wheelchairs, those kinds of things as well. But staffing is a big piece, and then location too. And maybe that's more of a cooperative problem, but serving 18 schools and trying to find that centralized location and yet be inclusive has just been a challenge.
Thank you, Marcia. Yeah, and I think in our rural environment, that's probably a challenge for a lot of us, right? Nell, were you going to jump in there?
Yeah, can you expand on that, Marcia, and maybe Mariah? Can you talk to us a little bit more about how this works in the rural environments when you're a co-op? Is it is there one space where all children will be coming, or is there one space in your 18 sites? How are you making sure each site has a certain number? Could you help us a little bit more with those details?
So when it comes to our specialized preschool program, we have one site, as centralized as possible for our 18 school districts. Now, the 3 districts I know of that are going to do early K, I have to be honest, I don't think that our students have really crossed their mind about what that's going to look like. So I'm trying to do some work with that. But we do
Yeah.
have some people who drive a good hour to get preschool services, if not more.
I am so grateful that you said what you said, because that helps us understand that we still have some barriers to overcome right there.
Yeah.
Keeping our students who are qualified for special services, which is the big question, how do we include them in this rule and in our classrooms? So do you want to expand upon that, Mariah?
Yeah, so we have 4 member districts that are really close together that partner with us to provide a preschool setting for East Helena, Clancy, Montana City, and then Trinity, which is Canyon Creek, which is one of our really tiny schools. So they partnered together, and then the other districts, some are going to start some early childhood programs. So that'll be a benefit. And then prior to that, it was, the resource teacher, the SLP kind of coming together, or the OT, to figure out how are we going to provide these services for a 3-year-old if there isn't a preschool setting. So my hope is that this is an opportunity for districts to see that we can have an impact on not only students with disabilities, but all students. And like Genevieve said, how can this reduce the number of students that we are referring to special education for literacy? And so I just think it's this amazing opportunity for rural Montana and for us to pool our resources and use some of this funding to create these environments, even if your rural school only has 5 children in it, but you can bring them together and then we can push our services in it. So I just feel like this is such an opportunity for districts and for related service providers, for an SLP to be able to serve a child in an inclusive setting where there's these great communication partners. Like I just see opportunity everywhere. So I'm excited, and I'm really encouraging districts to just go for it, So that's what I would say, is that it's kind of all over the place in my districts. But one thing that I see the potential in a cooperative in doing is our mission and vision is to support students in any setting and provide those resources. So how can we be that conduit to help support the PD, the staffing, the data management? Like, how can we help with that? That's how I see the cooperative expanding its influence, rather than just staying in that lane of nope, we're just providing related services. How can we expand our influence to go, we could reduce numbers for our SLPs. We could reduce numbers for I just see this having a ripple effect, and I get excited about it.
And one last follow-up, what I'm extremely excited to hear is that this is opening the doors for you to even consider a new way of doing early learning in Montana in rural places. That would be more like what Nora already has in place. So Nora, you already have a full inclusion where special ed the qualified students, and could you talk about your model and what that looks like now versus having a separate classroom for children who have IEPs? They're already included. So how does that look?
So that's what we had previously. We had students that only had disabilities, so only speech, DD kids in a room. And when we had this opportunity to expand, we jumped on it because we had no language models in the rooms. So we had all nonverbal students in a classroom, all learning, and you had multiple adults, and the adults would be the ones talking. So you'd be on the carpet doing a story and reading to kids, and the adults were the only ones talking because there wasn't enough language models. And then when we expanded it and we're able to include students without disabilities, it was probably the best thing that we ever did. We've tracked those kids since we started it. And, the research rings true that, they're less likely to be referred. They're more likely to graduate. I think our first cohort of students is now going to be freshmen. So that's how long we've been doing it. And we're super excited about it. Yeah, we're super excited. I think so what our plan is, it's fully included. We make sure that if you're a student that needs additional supports, you get it. So if that means that there's a body in there helping to support you learning, then there's a body in there helping to support you learning. We just want to make sure that students are the most successful that they can be. Our school board is very supportive of early learning. They know that it pays off. They've invested in it. We have a 3-year-old program that we don't get any money for, and it's fully included. And I think there's 27 kids in there right now. And those kids will help feed the 4-year-old program, but we don't get a dime for those. So I pay for a teacher and 3 pairs to be in that classroom. And that's all paid through out of district money. And every year we're always worried that they're going to cut it, but it never comes up. What we've done is we have students that are on feeding tubes, and they're using switches. We have students that are nonverbal and labeled with autism, and they sit and they're on the carpet and they're learning just like everybody else. They just have folders and they're learning with visuals instead of, and the kids interact with them. And so we've tried to make it so that when you walk in those classrooms, you can't tell that there's a difference between the student with a disability versus the student without a disability. And that's really what we pride ourselves in, is when you walk into the room, we don't want anybody to know, yeah, there's a lot of adults. I have speech paths in those classrooms, servicing students in those classrooms. I have OTs in the classroom servicing. I have school psychs going in and doing social emotional groups. But I don't want anybody to know who the kid is that needs the help. And so that's really what we do. And if I walk in a room and I can tell, then that's what we always check ourselves on. And we're like, oh, I can tell that kid's standing out. Let's figure out how we can rearrange this so that it doesn't look like that. And I think that's what has been really helpful with Anaconda's program, is that the entire staff believes that. And when we hire people, we tell them that, this is our belief system. Does this ring true with you? And that's really what we've done. With this early literacy bill, the plan is that we're just going to continue to service them in class. We don't plan on removing them from the classroom at all. They'll be fully integrated, and they'll get their intervention and they'll get additional intervention. So we just think it's a really amazing opportunity to continue to service students and, target literacy a little bit more.
I love how you connected it back to your core values, Nora.
Yeah.
This is for all, and I just love that.
Thank you all. Yeah, I am just finding this a really inspiring conversation about, not just how we serve kids better and serve our community better, but very specifically, how do we serve how do we jump on this as an opportunity to better serve our diverse learners? So it's very inspiring. And I think, people are definitely in the phase where they're thinking about the brass tacks of it, right? People are building these programs as we speak. And so I'm wondering if we can talk a little bit about some kind of logistical questions. One being, and I think Nora and Marcia, you've spoke to this a little bit, but definitely would open it up if you have any other thoughts, and Mariah as well, on how your districts are thinking about serving kids who already have IEPs in programs that are being funded through HB 352, or things that you're wrestling with or trying to problem solve. So let's start there. And Mariah, do you want to start? And then Nora and Marcia, if you have anything you want to add.
I think that this kind of goes back to those conditions, right? I think really thinking about, I think this is hard for me to articulate, because I just truly believe that if we can have an impact early on oral language and that literacy component, then we're going to see a decrease in that need for those related service providers, or potentially not even an IEP later down the road. So I probably let Marcia and Nora speak to this. I just truly believe, and I think a lot of my SLPs and some of my early childhood special ed teachers feel that if we can get the right interventions in place early, that we can potentially see a decrease in the number of students that are referred for special education. And so that's kind of where my mind is right now. So I'll let the other two speak. I hope that made sense.
Yeah, no, it totally made sense. I think, you know, for Anaconda, the things that we're still grappling with, I mean, yes, we've been a program for quite a few years and it's not perfect, but we're trying to make sure that we are integrating literacy. So, I mean, we've had an early kindergarten program and we've had to follow kindergarten standards in an age appropriate way, but this bill is not universal preschool, it is literacy. And so we have to figure out how to do it so that we meet the letter of the law and have integrity in that process. So, what we've been really looking into is integrating literacy more within the science and social studies circles that we do. How do we do more oral language? You know, we were not explicit with our oral language instruction in the past. We would do feedback loops with kids in centers, and we would give lots of opportunities to be, you know, to practice, but we weren't explicit in that instruction. And so our intervention for oral language needs to be bumped up a little bit. Of course, alphabet knowledge was always integrated, but not integrated in other areas, right? So that's really what we're trying to think about is how do we look at our schedule, keep the schedule high quality with making sure that students have free choice and you know, that we practice things and we're explicitly teaching, you know, social emotional skills and things like that. But really, we're really trying to make sure that we can integrate literacy in a way that really is, you know, good money, good bang for the buck, really. And so we've spent a lot of time with that. With our current reading consultants that we have for our literacy grant, that's really what we've shifted our focus to is, all right, this is coming. Our literacy grant money is running out at the end of the school year, so we won't have the funds available to, you know, have a consultant in our building once a month. So we're really trying to just start that process now. That's a barrier I think that we're trying to work through. Also, just money in general, like early childhood is expensive because there's a lot of things you have to buy that the other grade levels don't buy. The Velcro, the laminating sheets, snacks. You know, there's just a lot that you have to purchase. And so part of it's like we're trying to figure out how to use this year's money to pay for next year's supplies and materials. Yeah, like such tiny furniture, 100%, yes. And so we're trying to just be really creative with this year's money, helping to help support next year's, knowing that, you know, all those grants are going away. I think that's a barrier. And then another barrier is staffing. You know, I'm really lucky that every single one of my early learning teachers is a certified special education teacher and a certified P3 teacher. So like we have a utopia district, you know, set up. I have service providers that are also head teachers. I have paraprofessionals in the room that are also, you know, service providers. And so we're able to do that. However, you know, they're little kids and little kids require adults to get really low to the ground. And sometimes that's hard and sometimes people don't want to do that, and so it takes a certain type of employee that has the right attitude, affect, energy to really work in this environment. And really we want our team members to have just a really positive environment. Like we want it to be a positive place for students, so that's a barrier, making sure that our staffing is always high quality and always making sure that we train them, because it's a lot of work every summer to get these people caught up into, you know, how we operate. So those are the kind of things that we're dealing with as a district. Even though we've had it set up, there's still things we have to work on. Like we can't just immediately shift from you know, an exceptional circumstance immediately to this early literacy. There's still work to be done on that. I mean, I think that we're lucky that we had a program set up with all the materials, but there's still work to be done.
Always still work to be done, right? Thank you, Nora. Marcia, does that conversation spark any thoughts from you?
Just some of the same barriers of, you know, some of our district schools in this area are not moving forward with early literacy quite yet, and their barriers are much the same: finances and space. Many of our schools in the area are running levies right now, and bonds trying to find that space and trying to find that money. And so that's really huge right now. They might believe heavily in this initiative, but they're trying to figure out how to make it happen.
Yeah.
You know, I'd love to add in quick. I work in a few rural Montana schools, and a few years ago, Alex Ader out of Roberts worked really hard with this community. And I loved having the opportunity. We would walk across the town to go to the church when we'd go to the early learning environment, because the church donated space for where the early learning experience happened. And that started with the comprehensive literacy grant, which Nora talked about, and just building the capacity and the belief and the values around early learning environments, and the community started to pitch in and support the process and the calling. So don't underestimate the possibilities of using another building if you're listening. I think that's really important to think about.
Thank you, Nell. Yes, I have definitely taught in some donated church spaces in my day, so I can appreciate that. So another kind of brass tacks question that I imagine might be on folks' mind is how, if at all, is the screening process that's happening through these early childhood programs interacting with your child find screening processes? Are those still existing as separate, or are you starting to think about those having any sort of integration or overlap? And maybe, I don't know, whoever wants to jump in if you've got thoughts one way or the other on that.
We actually just did
Go ahead, Marcia.
Oh, sorry.
No,
We
you
just
go ahead.
Okay. We just did a combined screening yesterday for one of our rural schools. So what happened is our child find team was on campus if needed, and they did their early literacy screening. And if there was anything that popped up of, ooh, this might need to be a little bit more, they just popped on over to the other table to have just additional screening in the dial. That was our first time. I think we can integrate it a little bit better, but I did like that we were both there and it was a one-time thing instead of having to schedule separate appointments. We have a long ways to go, but I think we got started a little bit yesterday.
Yeah, and ours will be similar to what Marcia described. You know, our staff has always participated in kindergarten screenings and is there to assist. So we'll be a part of that. I think for a couple of our districts, and I know last week's webinar, they touched on this a little bit. So some of our districts still continue to need the dial for the comprehensive literacy grant for that early childhood. And so I think also just educating districts and staff on what child find is, what are those areas we need to look at, and then also just continuing to educate and provide professional development around child find, early screenings, and different things like that. So, yep, ours is very similar.
Yeah, and I think ours is similar, but I also think we're treating it as it's part of our MTSS process in the building. So of course you're always going to have child find, you know, you're going to the daycares, you're posting it, like that's still a part of it. And we use the dial as well for our child find. But what I think it is, it's about getting kids through the door so that you can get eyes on them, because if you can get eyes on them, then you can help them be more successful in kindergarten. Those of us that have been kindergarten principals know what I'm talking about. And so, you know, I think that's part of it, but we just really think of it as a data point where, yeah, like, you know, if your data tells us that you need more additional, you know, if you need additional support and phonological awareness, then we're going to take that. We're going to give the teacher support to meet your needs, and we're going to move forward and we're going to track it. And, you know, we're going to adjust the intervention as needed. So I think the screening tool is actually almost a better tool almost before you get to child find. I think in a way it's very similar. Like you could look at a student and work on doing intervention before you have to qualify. So so similar to what you guys are doing in the co-op world, we're doing our screenings tomorrow, but we actually invited our 0 to 3 provider because our 0 to 3 provider is going to start assessing families of, little siblings that show up as well. So I think we have like 10 students being screened out of the 37 that we're screening that are, 0 to 3. So those students will get screened tomorrow as well. So, I mean, we're trying to make it a really integrated approach with the screening. So, if family outreach, if a student qualifies for family outreach or 0 to 3, great. And then if they're able to, get additional support through us before we go down the path of, doing a dial or a referral, that's kind of where we're at. I think in some ways we can just use it as another good data point, and like we're all saying, like, we don't want to have to label kids to get, them help. And so if we can utilize this to do it appropriately, that's really the best thing.
Great, thank you, Nora. And I believe, Marcia, the co-op brings your 0 to 3 partners in for Child Find. Is that right?
In the
Or
fall, we
at one
do.
point. Yeah. And thanks, Jackie, as well, for sharing about how your co-op is shifting your thinking around those screeners as well. So I think I'll ask our panelists one more question before we open it up to audience members. So audience members, if you have questions, this might be a good time to start populating them in the chat. But Mariah and Nora and Marcia, I'd love to just ask each of you, is there anything else that you think our audience should know as they are doing the work of building and refining early childhood programs that truly serve all of our learners?
I'm just gonna say, and it kind of speaks to what Nora and Marcia were saying, is that early childhood is not like first grade or kindergarten. And so when we're building those programs, let's be really mindful of what curriculum we're deciding to purchase, what intervention we're going to use for oral language, and how are we going to train those people in the use of those interventions or that whole classroom approach to meeting the needs of the child. So that would just be my take, is that we can't look at this as just being mindful developmentally of what this needs to look like. And yes, it is expensive, and yes, there are barriers, but this is about improving outcomes and reducing costs later on. So that's my take.
Great. Thanks, Mariah. Nora, any parting thoughts there?
Yeah, I think I think the recommendation that I would say is that, it's okay to go slow. It's okay to learn and take the time to learn and not rush things out. If you're not comfortable if you don't know enough about something, don't rush it out. Some districts I know are starting really small with these programs. They might not be advertising it as much and trying to gather as many kids because they want it to be successful. And I know we want to capture as many students as we can, and I know we want to do the best intervention possible, but we also want it to be good intervention. And so sometimes if you have a program for 0 students right now, and then you open it up and you end up having 150 or whatever your number is, that's a big jump in less than 3-4 months when school opens again. So I would just be, don't be afraid to go slow and to learn, and don't be afraid to ask for help. So we did site visits all the time to other early childhood programs. Go visit, go see what other people are doing. We host people come to Anaconda all the time to see our program. There are lots of places in the state, around the state, that have been doing this for a really long time. And when you go to the programs, like, sometimes it'll match your community's philosophy or core beliefs, and sometimes it won't, but you'll still get ideas. And it's okay to say we don't know, and to go find the support that you need. But there are lots of people in the state that have been doing this for a while. We're all learning about high quality early literacy intervention. So, I imagine that the Reading League will continue to do webinars like this in the future. I would just continue to find resources that that fit your needs, but go see places. 100%. That's what we did, and it worked out well.
Thanks, Nora. Marcia?
Yeah, I guess those were both two very good points of just making sure that we're meeting developmental needs, because this is different than the kindergarten, first grade classroom. And then, yeah, don't be afraid to move slow. I think sometimes we feel like we have to know it all at once, and that's difficult. And it's difficult to have that planning period go faster than we're ready for. So I think both of those were really good points.
How about you, Nell? Anything on your mind that you want to share with educators from today's conversation?
Well, first of all, thank you for all your wisdom, leaders. Having clear voices from the field, it's so important for all of us to learn from each other. So thank you. I always like to come back with the phrase that we're always better together. And there are a lot of people out there who have led the way. They know the way. They're willing to show you the way. That piece is clear. Why? They had a lot of funding starting in 2014 called the Montana Preschool Development Grant. They had a lot of money pouring into developing and equipping educators and leaders to do this work long before this House bill came into being. In fact, we have places that have up to 800 kindergartners, but only 140 children can qualify for this early learning opportunity. That's Great Falls. So they've been running and smoothly operating for a long time, just like Anaconda. Just another program is Livingston, the Hardin KRC. They're doing this work. So to Nora's point, go see people who've got it going on. Why? Because the opportunity on the other side of saying yes is massive. You will change children's lives forevermore. And you will change your community. And early childhood education is the canary in the coal mine of a community. And your canaries might be dead because things are not growing. But if the canary is alive and vibrant and singing and living, is because we are taking care of the most at risk, the most vulnerable. And that's why these leaders are here today, because we want to understand this bill may not be perfect. It doesn't allow us free and everybody gets to go to school and we get to fund everything and build new buildings. As like Marcia said, we need a lot of space. I mean, it doesn't all of a sudden invent new teachers who can fill the positions. No, it doesn't, but it helps us move down the pathway with some funding to help us get there. And it's really important that we all band together to help each other out. So thanks for being here, but now it's your turn. Why don't you ask some questions and turn your mics on? We want to see you and we want to hear from you.
No questions?
Does anybody have any questions? If you don't have any questions, that's fine too. Hopefully these just answered it right off the top. And I think one of the things I've taken away from listening to this webinar is that we have a lot of work to do really in supporting equipping educators and making sure we, as the Reading League and as a group of individuals who really care about equipping educators with what they need to do and leaders with the knowledge they need to lead this work. As Nora said, funding is going away. There's more funding that is going to come again in the future if we're able to garner it. But the point is right now, don't underestimate what an empowered and equipped teacher will do in a classroom. And so take that time to equip your educators. Did we have any questions come in? How are you recruiting highly qualified preschool teachers? Does anybody have an answer to that one?
What we did is we just recruited within. We just we knew that there was high quality special education teachers, and we've gone that route. We've actually wanted the special ed first and the P3 later. So if you're a special education teacher, you already believe that all students can learn. In theory, most do, right? And so they already have that mindset. And so if they have that mindset, we can teach them everything else. And so we've protected that. Like preschool is exactly, it's very important to our community. It's a huge investment for our community. And so we've just taken that route. And those special education teachers, they also are case managers, right? So they're not just a special ed endorsed teacher, they are a dually rolled teacher where they case manage students within their classrooms and they teach the classroom. So they actually put more on their shoulders than anybody else because we don't have the special education teachers coming into the room. So that's what we did. I don't know if it was the right model, but it's a model we're sticking with for a while anyway. So yeah.
I just totally believe in growing your own, like identifying those people that you think have the tenacity, grit, and the work ethic to be a part of something great. And so I really like that model when I'm looking to hire staff, is looking for the right person, and then we'll get them trained up to do the very best they can. So similar to what you're saying, Nora. How about you, Marcia?
Yeah, similar as well. Our community college in Kalispell has an early childhood strand and a degree, and then also has the 2+2 program for education. So as we've recruited within as well with special educators, I usually go into the community college, one of the early childhood classes, at least once a semester, and kind of give a early childhood all inclusive lesson, and we talk together and just hoping to expose those students who are coming up to the possibilities. And then we open our preschool program up for people to come and get some of their field experience hours as well. Just hoping to grow all educators in that way.
I love it.
Thank you all. There was another question about curriculum selection that's developmentally appropriate. And I would assume, or I would add to that as well, that we know is aligned with what we know about the development of language and literacy for our youngest learners.
So I can just talk about a couple things we're doing here. I mean, I reached out to Nell, the leaders at the larger districts that are in the process of finding what works. Also, just got information from the previous comprehensive literacy grant for early childhood, to identify what resources they used. And then what we're doing here in the cooperative is, again, the cooperative will, we're going to use OXED, Nellie whole class, and then Nellie intervention in some fashion in some sites. But I think that's another place where I think we can partner together to figure out what are the most appropriate curriculums to be that could have the biggest impact, that are aligned with the science of reading and what we know is going to have an impact, so that we could, like you said earlier, Genevieve, the intent of this law is to reduce the number of third graders, right? So what do we need to do at each developmental step to reduce that number of students that are unable to read at third grade? So I'd love to hear what other people are doing.
Thanks. Jackie, Jackie from the Early Literacy Collaborative is joining us. I noticed you took yourself off mute. Did you want to weigh in on this question?
It's not exactly this question. So if somebody else wants to talk about curriculum, go ahead and I'll wait.
Okay, that sounds great. Nora, Marcia, anything else you would add in terms of how you're thinking about curriculum review evaluation?
I think the easiest thing is that, curriculum is a fascinating topic, and honestly, like, early childhood curriculum was not something that was a strength of mine. So I reached out to people And so it was just about building that network and finding people. So, you know, looking at reading consultants, when we went on site visits, I'd ask questions like, what are you using for language? What are you using for phonological awareness? And I would ask those questions, and then getting samples and really trying it out. Every publisher will send you samples. They send free stuff all the time because they know if you like their stuff, they'll let you have it. So don't be afraid to ask. And don't be afraid to, you know, contact other sites to kind of see what's the best thing. Like I spoke earlier, we're still struggling a little bit with oral language. We're not quite sure where to go on that, and also just how to integrate literacy better into the content areas, and how to do that a little bit better. Also looking at, you know, intervention programs. We use Haggerty for phonological awareness. I'm not sure that that fits our needs most of the time. So we're trying to revamp how we utilize that. We went to Haggerty because it's used in K2, or was used in K2 for the that piece of reading, but we're not sure on that piece. So again, like, you know, we're reaching out. Like I just had a conversation with Great Falls yesterday, and, you know, what are you guys doing for oral language? And we had a really good conversation. So don't be afraid to reach out to other communities and schools, and you know, Nell can give you lots of information on lots of interventions. She's a wealth of knowledge. So
That's what I was going to add, Nora. You know, at the Reading League, we are program agnostic, but we are more than happy to thought partner with educators around what should you be looking for in curriculum? What are those important indicators and instructional focus areas? So we're always happy to connect there.
And I think it's hard in this space because we don't have this guiding document or that says, hey, we've looked at all these curriculums, they all either don't check off on these boxes or they do. And so it really puts it in the hands of you as leaders to know what early learning curricular resources, they're really curricular resources. My best thoughts in this is like, we as the Reading League need to have a session just dedicated to discussing curriculum and how to design curriculum with what resources that are out there. The things you buy go into your curriculum pathway. And what are the pathways you have for those who are children who have intensive language needs, or those who are nonverbal, those who are on track but at risk for literacy delays, may look totally different. And that's hard. And so knowing your resources can vary for who you serve is really important. And I think this just kind of pings me that we'll add on to this series and make it just a really wonderful room for all of us to keep growing around this. And I'll design a session around curriculum and assessments.
Jackie, did you have a question or a comment that you want to share?
Yes, I just wanted to say, so, you know, a few minutes back, we talked about, you know, funding is a struggle. Space is a struggle. I've heard it said many times in this that you have to go slow. And Nell has always said you have to go slow in order to go fast. And so I just wanted to say that the Early Literacy Collaborative is working really hard to be very intentional, to ask the right questions, to get the answers we need to take back to the legislature so that they will, one, continue and hopefully expand. And that work has been a process. Kim is deep in the weeds of making sure that we get that information. And so I know that's the main question a lot of schools have right now is what should I be finding out? How will I report it? And that has many different eyes on it, because again, we need to continue this with the taking away exceptional circumstances. This is what we got in its place. And we understand now from Mr. Barker that it was going to be nothing. And so we're working really hard to make sure that we get what we need from that. And then I just was also going to say a large majority of the schools who are opting into this are choosing to use screeners that were I said approved. I don't really love that word, but they are choosing to use what was defined as the best that they could use. And so that's been really, I think that's remarkable. And I think this is a good place to report that because screeners are important in what we're doing. And I know that Nell worked really hard on that, and any of you others that had weighed in on that. So that's just really what I wanted to say. You could call it an update.
We appreciate that, Jackie, and we appreciate your advocacy for us at the OPI as well. Well, I want to thank so much our panelists, Marsha and Nora and Mariah, for sharing your insights and for this inspiring conversation this morning. And thanks to all of our educators out in the field who joined us live or who might be watching this recording after the fact. And I'll turn it over to Nell for some closing words for us here.
Yeah, thank you everybody for joining us. It's just such a pleasure to be able to serve and help us evolve our thinking around this, because this is about putting a footprint into the future so we can help others go the way with efficiency, right? You know, here at the Reading League, we're about sharing knowledge and inspiring change and helping you out. So write any of us. You have my email. Obviously, I've been sending emails. We also sent our link into the chat box that said, join the Reading League. We're getting better and better at our work together. We're still kind of in infancy, but we really want to build a league in this state and make a difference. We also have scholarships to the Big Sky Literacy Summit, which are worth $1,200. And that can get you in and get you a hotel room. And we will have some of the greatest language researchers and some of our assessment companies that are on that advised list will all be there. You can learn a lot. Some of these curricular tools will be there. So it's a place for you to be in an international audience where they're really doing cutting edge thinking about what is best for all learners. So we'd love to have you apply for scholarships. They're due April 30th. So with that, again, thank you, Mariah, Marsha, and Nora. Your wisdom is deep and we are so grateful. And for now, we'll sign off. We'll add some more talks to our series and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.